you don't need to know everything. You don't need to be a know-it-all. Be more open-minded. See other people's points of view. The problem with this is that I'll admit our society, the internet, is very diverse. And most of this is because a lot of people have a lot to say. And most of the time, this is because people want to be always right. They always want to say, oh, I told you so, I was right, But the problem with this is that they're too closed-minded. They feel like when they're right, they feel smarter, they feel better, they feel powerful, And this is a huge problem, and a huge misconception is that you're not. Being right all the time doesn't mean you're always smart. Doing all this every single day and trying to be right and outsmarting everyone that isn't the way. We feel like when we do this, we just feel like we're unstoppable. But at the end of the day, most of the time when you're right, it's mostly opinions. Like 80, maybe 70% is all opinion. And the fact that they are opinion, there are no right or wrong answer. It's an opinion-based fact. A great example behind this is mostly due to relationships, right? You have to be open-minded and look at other people's point of view, right? Most relationships end because of bad communication, right? The guy will probably work a lot to try to get his money up, and the girl will feel like as he's working so much, she doesn't feel appreciated. She doesn't feel like he spends enough time. And the guy point of view is like, well, how am I supposed to work nonstop to get our money up, to afford the things that we have, or to take you out on a nice date, or to take you out and buy you all this stuff, right? And the girl will say, oh, well, is that all that's about, And she just wants to feel that love and affection toward the guy that she first met, And this is really comes from the concept of two different sides of the story, The guy sees it as getting his money up. The girl feels like he doesn't love her anymore because he's constantly working, and every time he comes home, he might be tired or being moody because he's just really tired. And that's why I say when you're in a relationship, communication is key. You have to look at it at both sides of the story. Especially if you're a guy, if you're working nonstop, getting your money up. Okay, why did your girl feel like you don't appreciate her enough? Okay, well, when's the last time you really talked to her? Like, girls genuinely need to be talked to. And same thing with guys, And you just need to be open. You need to feel for that person. You need to put yourself in their shoes and be like, okay, that kind of makes sense because if he's working 40, 50 hours a week and I barely see him and I only see him once or twice a week, that might say something, like, okay, maybe I'll try to make a better effort. I'll try to be more present, try to be in the moment more for her, and the same thing with girls, if you're a girl, you have to understand, like, the way to get your money up, the way to live a better lifestyle is like, sometimes you have to make the sacrifice to put in more hours, to put in more of the work to get to where you want in life, and then you have to be like, okay, I accept that, and then you have to create a balanced life of that. Another great example is that, again, we are very diverse, I feel like, whether you're left or right, whether you're a female or a guy, whether you're woke, not woke, whatever it is, everything is very diverse, and I feel like as human, we're all just trying to live our life, like, we're just on the floating rock trying to figure out what to do with our life, I think we are too concept of pop culture and too consumed by the internet and not too consumed by the present, not consumed by our everyday life, and that's something that we tend to really misunderstand because we are not in the present more. So instead of constantly consuming more things on the internet and try to just go back and forth with people, be more open-minded. Feel for that person. Feel like, why does that people feel for it? Another thing that I noticed is like, when we were younger, we love heroes. We always root for the heroes. But as we get older, we start to feel for the villain. We start to feel their side of the story. It's like, oh, that makes sense why that person is who he is, Not because he's an evil person, not because he just wants to be the villain. Nobody wants to be the villain, And sometimes when we get older, we start to feel like the heroes are the villain, A great example behind this is Star Wars, If you know Star Wars, right? Darth Vader, he was never a villain. He wasn't trying to become an evil person. He became evil because he was trying to save his loved one. Unfortunately, he had to do things that shouldn't have been done that led to him to the dark side. But my point is that even that, right? Darth Vader was never evil. However, as we started to realize is that the Jedi Council was actually starting to kind of be evil in a way. Taking child because they are force sensitive or putting them into wars as they so-called, say they're peacekeepers, but normally they're just like the Sith, like trying to find more force sensitive kids, That's something like I realized when I got older. I was like, wow, the Jedi like order is really, really like corrupt, you know. And then you see all these stories like Ahsoka Tano, you know, she leaves the Jedi orders is saying how like it's corrupt and stuff like that. Even the clones, you're like, what were we fighting for, you know? But yeah, it's just like that, you know. Even same thing with Marvel, you know, when we look at like Thanos and the Avengers, you know, like Thanos was just trying to keep balance in the galaxy, and he had to like wipe out half the universe, you know, to keep that balance. But the Avengers were like, no, we gotta save people, you know. And yeah, don't get me wrong, saving people is probably a good point of view, but it's like you also start to see why Thanos did what he did to create that balance. But that's what I mean, like, don't be too close-minded. Understand both sides of the story, because as you do this long enough, you start to see like, whoa, like nobody's really right at all. Like, yeah, you might think you're right all the time, but you're really not. And knowing that is like a relief, because like there is no right or wrong answer. And when you feel like you're right nonstop, it feels overwhelming. It feels like, what am I right about? You know, and when you feel like you're right, then you start to think like, am I really right? You start to question it, because then you start to feel like, okay, maybe I'm looking at a really bad point, like a different point. Like I said, everything in life are two things: number games, but two, the point of view of how you view something. The minute you look at one thing, and the next you'll look at a different thing, and it will be the same concept but different point of view. And this could come from someone different opinion, this could come from someone different perspective, whatever it is. It's just knowing that different point of view says a lot, and just don't be too close-minded on that point of view. You know, whether it's in relationship, whether that's in political reason, whether that's in business ideas, just be open-minded. And the more open-minded you are, the more growth you'll have, the more ideas will come to you, and the better person you will become, you know. Be open-minded. I think that's key in life towards anything that you do in life, especially in a relationship. Like, yeah, I just know a lot of relationship falls because of like trying to be right, or trying to like, oh, I told you so, I knew I was right, you know. And at the end of the day, you guys aren't against each other. You guys against the world, period, you know. Same thing goes for yourself, you know. It's not you against everyone. It's just you against the world that we live in, and try to just make it on the floating rock, you know. So, like I said, just be open-minded. But I gotta get going. That's going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.